Alrighty, so we're picking up right where we left off with part 3 of the UWP Minesweeper series, and right away we're going to get into it. Alright, so first off, let's make a method. So private void, we don't do static, UWP does not do static that well, and if it does, I don't know how you did it. So let's create the restart method. So the restart game is a method that will allow you to just click any of these flyout menus in the actual XAML. So let me launch this. So I'll tell you what I mean here. Takes a second here. It's building it since I added stuff. So when you click any of these, it will completely create a new grid, restart the entire game, and not have to worry about anything. It just does it all for you. So first off, status text block, which we will be using. We're not doing binding. I know we could be doing binding. I just decided, hey, it is easier without binding. Why add the difficulty? So game active equals true. So we're here pretty much just resetting a lot of values. So if tile list dot count, excuse me, doesn't equal 0, just clear it, because you can do that. So we're pretty much going to take, actually we're just going to take this array here, or this if statement, not array. Why did I say array? And then we're going to do button, and then we're going to do button. Okay. And then we have, this is our first time actually calling anything in the XAML. So, well, besides this, I guess. So technically our second time. But our main grid, this is our first time calling our main grid. So our game grid.column definitions.count is this. And we'll pretty much do the exact same thing for row. If I can find the ampersand here, or the and sign, whatever you want to call it. We'll copy this, and then we'll paste it. Nope, it didn't copy. Hold on, let me try that again. There we go. And then we take row. And then we need doesn't equal 0. All right. And the reason we're using all if statements here is because we don't want one method to not be called, because that would be bad. So game grid dot children dot clear, and that'll completely remove all the grid. That simple method helps us restart the game. Okay, so what we can do now is we can just click or type in restart for each of these methods, and that's our first line of each method done. Personally, I'm going to take this method and actually move it up right under main page. Alrighty, so let's work on something else. So, what did I do wrong? Oh, these aren't called. Yeah, these aren't touched, so that's why it's going off. So, real quick, rows equal 9, which is our easy mode. You could do any value you really wanted to. It's up to you. As I said in part 1, I believe, that this Minesweeper can take any amount of rows and columns, as far as I know. Maybe there's a max value. Well, there is a max value. You could probably break it. It's not that bad. Okay, rows equals 16. Columns equal 16. And then mine total equals 40. And these are default, just Minesweeper rules. I'm not coming up with this on the whim. So equals 16. And the reason I did 16 by 30 in this one is because if you do 30 by 16, it looks hilarious and just small. So we're just gonna switch that over, can pretty much turn it on its side like most Minesweepers do. And then we have that. All right, let's just space this out. Methods from variables. All right, So we're 5 minutes in. Let's create one of the biggest methods in the actual thing. Alrighty. So, or one of the biggest segments, because we need several methods in this one method. Private void tile creator, which is, as it seems, you create all your tiles here. So populate tile list, and of course these aren't created, we're just going to type them out. Okay. So what we're going to do first off, if we go highlight this, Control KS, and we surround this with a region, we're going to do tile creator, just so we can minimize this when we're done. All right. And if you don't know what region is, it's just something that Visual Studio Code does perfectly, and it allows you to pretty much just collapse and name segments of your code that might get in the way. So it's pretty nifty. Private void populate tile list. Okay. So this is going to be a nested for loop. Let's first create an instance of a tile and then do our for loop, which I believe is rows, as I named it. And then we actually need to rename this to J and this to columns. Okay. And then what we do is we do T equals new tile, our row, which is I, and our J, which is column. Tile array, or nope, not array, list dot add T. So this will populate our array. Simple method. We're done with our first one. Okay. Private void create tile mines. Okay, so we're creating our mines. So in this method, we're going to need a random RNG. You can name it whatever. I just name it RNG because random. It just makes it easier to actually type out and reproduce the name. Okay, yeah, we have a temp mine counter, so we don't minus the actual total of the mines, and it just makes everything easy. Okay, so we're going to use a while loop, which I don't really use while loops all that often, but in this instance we need to. Because if you use a for loop or an if statement or anything like that to, loop through it, not an if statement, I don't know why I said that, a for loop, for some reason it just doesn't like to do all 10, all 40, or all 99. I figured that out the hard way. Sorry, I had to get more water. So tile.list. So here's when we're going to do some link queue, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so we're going to do find all. Let's do a parentheses here because for some reason that doesn't like me sometimes. X dot is mine. Dot count is less than mine total. Okay, so that's our first bit of code, our first bit of the while statement. So what this is pretty much saying is if the count of this is less than this, keep going until it hits greater or equal to mine total. So, excuse me. So if this equals 10 and this equals 9, it'll keep going until it equals 10. Perfect. What we need. So int row RNG equals RNG.next equals rows, or then we put the parameter rows because that's how far we want it to go. We want it to go from 0 to 9. In this case, 0 to 8 because indexes, it would be 1 through 9 normally, 0 through 8 in code. And the same thing for this. We'll just do columns. And there's our places where we're going to put the random mines. So here we're going to do, if it doesn't equal, so if it's not true, array.find, I did that again, I'm sorry, .find x.row equals row RNG and x.column equals column.rng, or column RNG, not .rng, sorry about that. Dot is mine. Then go into it. Yeah, I forgot a parenthesis somewhere, didn't I? Yes. 2 parentheses on the end. And that'll happen a lot because there's a lot of parentheses to put there. So .list, .find, x.row equals row RNG and x.column equals column. You could totally just copy and paste this top piece. For some reason, I'm not doing that. And let's turn that to true. You could also just do this. It'll reverse false to true, but we're not going to do that because that just confuses me. And then we're going to do temp mine counter. Actually, hold on. I think that might be redundant. Okay, that's redundant. Remove that. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why it's in there still. Guess I missed it whenever I was actually doing the project, or doing this. All right. So this video might be a little longer because we're going to get tile done completely, or tile creator done completely. What's next? Create tile surroundings. All right, so this is where it gets crazy. Just a tad bit. There's probably better ways to do this, but the way I'd like to do it is a little bit more complicated. So create tile surroundings. I'm pretty sure I spelled that wrong. Okay, and I spelled it right. Perfect. All right, so let's create a tile instance because we need that. So what we can do is we'll do another for loop rows, and then we'll go back down here, for loop j, and then columns. Alrighty. So here's where we're going to do 8 if statements. And I'm not kidding about the 8 if statements. So what you can do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's probably better ways to do this, but honestly I found this way to be the most effective. So before this if statement, we need to do some LenQ or link stuff. Tile.list.find x.row equals I and x.column equals j. Okay, that's our tile. So I'm going to try to explain this to my best of my ability here. So I plus 1 less than rows. So making sure it's not going out of bounds on the below side. So this is our below. However you spell below, honestly I don't remember. Below of cell, tile. Not really. Don't know why I have cell there. Okay. And then we're first going to just get all of this out. So I minus 1 which is making sure you have an above part so it doesn't go out of bounds. So most of these if statements are checking to make sure you don't go out of bounds. And that's perfect because we don't need to go out of bounds. So j plus 1. And you also kind of start to see why I have global variable rows and columns, because it just makes it easier and all that. So / right of tile. And then j minus 1. Making sure, of course, out of bounds, yada yada. / left of tile. So there's our basic 4 cardinal directions, right? Or our basic just directions. You've got up, down, left, and right. Now we need to do the diagonals. All right, so let's see. I plus 1 rows and j plus 1 columns. What did I do wrong? I forgot that. Okay. All right, and this is the bottom right. Okay. And we could actually just copy this and just change it up a little bit. So this is our top right. Okay. And then we take the exact same approach, copy it. Yep, that's right. Actually, we need to change this as well to this. Okay. And then we'll copy this again. Not before we do, I believe this is bottom left. Of tile. I'm probably going to put diagonal in these real quick. Okay, diagonal of tile. So we have I plus 1 less than rows. Okay. And then of course you have your top right, which is almost the same thing. You just make sure you do minus minus, and then greater than or equal to 0. Make sure I did that right. Okay. And then we need our final bit of code. Let's make sure we actually label this. Top left diagonal of tile. Okay. So the last bit of code is going to be somewhat repetitive, but we're going to do it anyway. So t dot surroundings dot add tile list dot find x dot row equals I plus 1 and column, or x dot column equals j. Okay, and then we need a semicolon. Okay, so as you can see here, this is pretty much copying the if statement. This first segment here, I plus 1, is right here. It's going to be the same way for this. So all we need to do is I minus 1. Okay, and then for this one, we just need to do remove this segment, and then do ij plus 1. We don't really need the parentheses, so I could just scrap these. It'll still work the same. And then, of course, let's copy this one. J minus 1. And then when you get here, you have I. Alright, so sorry about that. The actual recording just cut out for some reason. I don't have full storage or anything, it just decided to. So we finished it up by just adding more tile surroundings and using this as a guide to what we put here. Okay, so I can't really show you how this works. You could totally do a text block in the main grid if you really wanted to print out this and just show you the amount of tiles and stuff. There are plenty of ways to do this, but this is just definitely one of them. So another thing we did is we added tile creator as a method up here, and if we run this, there's nothing happening on the XAML. So not much I can show you. It doesn't crash. That's a good thing. So we will be back next time to work on this, which I was explaining to nothing because it stopped recording. So this will be next episode or next part, and we'll get to show you a little bit more on what the main meat of this actually is going to be. So I'll see you in the next part. Sorry about cutting out and missing a little bit. I didn't talk too much. I didn't talk about anything too important. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.